Very entertaining. Well, that's officially a first for me, and it happened twice. Oh, Pat. That is hilarious. So Pat says it is the GNUist style in wildebeest fashion. Oh my goodness. Is there no end to the GNU puns? Gambling. Very happy wildebeest. I can imagine that yesterday was actually quite unpleasant for them as well, especially for the young calves who have less control over their internal body temperature. And of course, the smaller you are, the faster you either gain heat or lose heat. So for them yesterday must have been quite a shock to the system. They are, of course, adapted to it, but yesterday was extreme. It was obviously the hot air pushed ahead of this cold front that we're now experiencing. I've got goosebumps. I'm loving it. I'm not going to put a jacket on though, but having the option is quite a relief as well. You're not an impala, little baby. You're a wildebeest. And you better be careful because there's a very big buffalo coming through. And as we know, they're pretty grumpy at the moment. Some of you may have been watching that sighting that Brent had with a brand new wildebeest baby that then got smacked by a buffalo minutes after its birth and entrance into life. It's not an easy introduction to the harsh world out here. I think he's wanting to come and lie down in the mud. It'll be interesting to see if Peter will let him. We're also giving Peter a fairly wide berth. He has developed a tendency to wander up towards the staff village and towards final control in the middle of the day or at unexpected times. He's given a couple of the staff members quite the fright when they're wandering to and from. So everybody's being extra vigilant at the moment. A hippo like Peter can be very, very dangerous. Stephen is watching in England. You were saying, how do we hang our washing out with all of the animals in our back garden? Carefully would probably be my best answer. I was going to make a joke about England and rain and washing and so on, but I think that was fairly predictable, so Stephen, I won't. Having lived in the UK for 3 years and experienced the joys of that. The answer is we hang it up very carefully, and I believe that Karula has been known in the past to pull down washing off laundry lines and have a quick roll around in it. That is something I was told about when I first started working here, that Karula might pop around. What have you spotted there, Tabs? Oh, elephants. Well done, didn't even see them. It's all happening at Gowrie Dam. This could be interesting. I wonder if they're going to try and come to the pan. Interesting to see how the situation plays out. And as they make their approach, I want to just show you something so that you're not too concerned whilst watching the Djuma Dam camera. There is the pan, and it does have water in it by the looks of things. So the animals are able to drink right next to, or very close to, the pan. Let's have a look and see how this situation plays out with the elephants. I think that they're the reason that Peter keeps coming out and wandering around, because he gets chased out by elephants and other animals making their way in. Stopping to sniff, led by most likely the matriarch there in the front. behind this herd. You can see him at the back there. He's not that big. He's fairly large. You can see that the really pronounced size difference between the females in the front and the male at the back. Mike, you were wondering whether or not anyone has seen Wrinkly Bottom or his herd recently. No, not to the best of my knowledge. I haven't personally. But that being said, I'm not entirely certain in my own mind that I have ever encountered Wrinkly Bottom's herd. I think I have, once. But I haven't spent enough time with them that I would recognize them straight off the bat. And this is really nice to watch this elephant herd approach the water. The matriarch in front is walking very carefully with her trunk in the air, making sure that she's alert to any kind of dangers that might be facing her family. Big male at the back. Really interesting to see their approach. We don't often get to see them from that distance, so well done Tebs for spotting them. Well, I hope I would have spotted them by now. Here comes one, a latecomer. Wait for me. The herd is accompanied by 2 big males, by the looks of things. Apparently you had this herd with James earlier. Sorry guys, somebody's just trying to contact me on the Game Drive channel. So that Ellie with the floppy ear is the same one that we saw with James. Craig, I've stopped to look at Shlamli and Lawful at Gari Dam.
Alright.
The excitement. Water. So excited. So the fact that they're accompanied by those 2 big males, you can see how the males are actually harassing them a little bit. Head popped up over the side there. Hello girl. Hello girl. Just letting you know that we're here. Hello big girl. Presenting myself. Hey, look at those ears. They're so floppy on both sides. Oh. My goodness. I can't decide what this elephant looks like, but it's quite ridiculous. First time I've ever seen this Ellie. 2 floppy ears, damaged cartilage around the top. Hello guys. It's a bit windy, which is also unsettling them. It's actually very windy. And they're trying to approach the water. They are going to chase that buffalo, or they're going to move that buffalo away. The one. Got a fright. Buffalo scared it. Hello girl. We're going to sit nice and still as they come past us. Shame. They wanted to come and have a drink at the dam, but they should be able to smell the pan, or at the very least work out that there's water there. Hello girls. Hi. Are those big boys harassing you? Can see the stress. I love that floppy-eared elephant. There's actually 2 in this herd with floppy ears. And that's genetic. That's got to be genetic if there's 2 of them. It might be the same herd that you saw with James. You might not have seen all of the members of the herd. But I think that's genetic. The fact that there are 2 of them with faulty cartilage in their ears suggests to me that it's a genetic cause behind that. Just like sometimes you get tuskless elephants as well. They do come with their own variety of birth defects. Might be that they weren't actually coming for water, although they did stop to investigate the dam. They might have had a drink at Gallagher waterhole before. Here comes the big male at the back. Ooh, Jose. He wants to know. I've spoken a lot about the intelligence of... Hello, beautiful boy. He's an old elephant. Look how thin he is. Sorry, I got distracted, Jose. Oh, it's an old female. That's why her forehead is so pronounced. She's got very long tusks. That is a very old girl walking behind the herd. You'll probably find, in fact, that she is the previous herd's matriarch. Oh, sorry, let me try that again. The herd's previous matriarch that is slowly starting to relinquish control, probably to one of her daughters. And that's why the forehead bones are so pronounced, her hip bones are so pronounced. She's actually an old girl, an old female. Awesome to see though, and she's big. She's obviously spent years growing. We'll just sit here for the moment. And before I carry on, Jose, you wanted to know whether or not hyenas or elephants are more intelligent. And the answer to that is elephants are more intelligent. Spotted hyenas are very, very clever. Elephants take it to a new level. They've actually physically got pathways, nerve pathways in their brain that are particularly devoted towards emotional development and psychological development, as well as socio and proprioception. So their spatial awareness, as well as the intricacies of their relations, it puts them a little bit more intelligent than spotted hyenas. It's a different kind of intelligence. Look at these guys. Sorry. It's the Wildebeest Sports Day. Whoa. Here they come again. Circuit number 2. Skipping. Bouncing. There's sub-adult joining in. Bouncing. This is hilarious. Yep, definitely Wildebeest Sports Day.
Hey, so what's umbrella theory?
Wish I could bounce like that. I wish I had energy like that, actually. Eee! And this is purely for fun. They are having fun. I think the sub-adults also chasing them and racing with them. Even playing with them, I think you could. Trotting. Bouncy, bouncy, bouncy trots. Oh, it's a lot of fun to see. Oh, settling down. Tired now, race is over. I'm going to send you across to James so that I can restart Rusty, but I will be back with you very shortly. Okay, well, we're going to stay in this position for now. Let's have a look.
Hello everybody. Sorry, my radio communications with the final control went on the blips, so I'm now putting a handheld onto myself, and you will have the great and esteemed pleasure, of course, of watching me attach myself to radio. You can see the great trials and tribulations that we have to go through. It really is really difficult, as you can see. Oh. So windy out here, so it's so hard. Isn't it, Brian? Yes, dreadful. Right, here's the handheld radio.
Power on, 2.
The power is on 2. I think it's supposed to be on 2. Yes, it is. Okay. Okay. Oh dear. Not quite ready. I need a little bit that goes in the ear. Okay, on we go. Sorry about that. Now I can hear the dulcet tones of Geraldine at will, I hope. Ah, there we go. Hello, Jerry. Much better. The dust bowl that it has become, and there is a little bit of greenery growing out of the clay there, and I think that will become fairly valuable forage fairly soon for some animals, but they're a bit nervous to go on there, of course, because it is still a little bit soft underfoot, and if you're a thin-legged animal like an impala without large feet like a human, you will probably sink in there very quickly and become mired and unable to move. So that's where we went there. Then we checked the eastern boundary for a while, found a herd of zebras, but no tracks of any cats. Unfortunately, no lions at this stage, but we are looking also for some leopard tracks. Not sure of the position or whereabouts of Karula, and I believe Jamie did have some male tracks around the western sector, so we'll head sort of towards that area, and we might also get an update from Arathusa and see what's going on there. So that is the general plan of the morning. Otherwise, it's just very pleasant driving around in the full shade. Isn't it, Brian? Marvellous. I believe you had our elephants at the waterhole having a drink. Hello, Dylan in Iowa. You are about to become a lawyer. I believe you've just been accepted to law school. And you want to know if you can do anything for conservation here in Africa as a lawyer. Dylan, off the top of my head, I'd say unless you qualified out here, probably not immediately, but definitely you could get involved in animal rights stuff. You could get involved in NGO work, for wildlife NGOs. They will need sort of pro bono work done all the time. And I mean, certainly once you've qualified, you can come out here, and while you certainly couldn't practice as a lawyer, you could certainly practice, you could work for environmental law firms, environmental consultancies, absolutely. So lots of different things you can do out here for the help, to help with the preservation of wildlife. And I think the NGO route is probably the route to go, unless you go with consultancies. And of course, legal qualifications throughout the world are very different everywhere, and so you couldn't actually practice as an environmental lawyer in South Africa. That just means you couldn't take on clients, but you could certainly work in-house for NGOs and consultancies, and your legal experience and legal background would make an enormous difference, I'm sure. So Dylan, keep at it. Good dreams to have, and lovely to hear of lawyers that have dreams of helping with conservation as opposed to just making money from other people. Right, back to Jamie. She's still got some drinking animals. We'll head across to the south and then the west. See you just now.
Elephant herd, and I'm absolutely fascinated by old elephants. I'm not going to follow too closely because I don't want to stress them out, particularly with this old lady. But she is, I would say, easily coming up to 50, if not older. Just judging by her sheer size. She's got huge tusks. She's huge and stately, but she's starting to sort of waste. Her spine is prominent, her hip bones are prominent. I would love to know what stories that elephant could tell in her 50 plus years wandering through these lands. And as I said, she was probably the matriarch of this herd at one point. And she's reached the stage now where the younger ones have taken over. And she is
Jamie, are those in lawful
bringing up the rear. Sorry guys, I'm just going to answer Craig's question. And now mobile south down Twin Dams Road.
Okay, copy. Thank you. Possible to join? Heading east.
You're more than welcome to. I've just passed the Warburg Junction now. Craig would just like to join us at the sighting. I think he might struggle actually. I think that these eddies are going to keep moving off. Let's see how we do though, because I really am fascinated by that old lady. Sure. Angela, it's a good question. Angela wants to know how many different elephant families or elephant herds there are in this reserve. With close on 3 million hectares worth of open area, and I would guess somewhere in the region of about 14,000 elephants. Angela, I honestly don't know. Let's average it out. Let's say there's an average of 15 elephants in a herd. Now let's pretend that it's 20, because I've just realized how difficult that maths was going to be. So what is that? 14,000 divided by 20. Anybody? No? Okay. 14,000 divided by 20 is 700. Have I got that right? No, that can't be right. Yes, 700. My word, my brain is fried. I should be able to do that. But yes, roughly, I think about 700. That is entirely a guess. That is not an accurate number. That is a rough estimation. Very difficult for me to be able to tell you exactly how many eddy herds there are. Lots and lots. This is a fairly small herd, and I think probably my average of 20 was a bit of a high estimate as an average number of elephants in a herd. This herd is so easily identifiable by the floppy-eared individuals. There's two of them. Actually, both little males, I think. They are going to move off, I think. They seem to be on a mission. Zoe, you were wondering whether it could be complications during birth that could cause those floppy ears. Absolutely. No reason why not. There we go. We can have a look at that one floppy-eared eddy.
River. But inside
yes, possibly. Complications during birth, something within them. I think they've got some kind of genetic defect, just because there's two of them in this herd. Generally, I don't think floppy ears are caused by injury. It's a possibility, but I think it's more likely to be genetic complications. And yes, entirely possible something happens during the birth of the elephants. Fascinating to see though. I've never seen a double droop like that one individual with such perfect symmetry. Just bear with me one moment. I need to go onto the Game Drive channel. I'll be with you now.
One of you can carry on.
In a moment when Andrew's finished speaking. I think that's the last view of our elephant herd that we're going to have. But that was awesome. Some interesting characters. Angela, I'm going to see if I can do a little bit of research and find out the exact number of elephant herds in the Kruger, or a rough number of elephant herds in the Kruger. I'm not sure anybody knows for certain. I'd also be very curious to know how many big bulls, big males there are. Crystal, you wanted to know what happens when an elephant dies of natural causes. Well, first of all, a lot of elephants die around rivers, and the reason behind that is because their teeth wear down. And we've chatted a lot about the natural aging process of elephants, and essentially their death is caused by a combination of old age and malnutrition, because they move through 6 sets of molars within their life. By the time they get to their 6th set, at about roughly 50 years old, they can no longer chew their food properly, and they've got no more teeth to come in and replace that. So they can't chew food as well, and generally the softest food is found around rivers. So if the park officials find an elephant carcass that has died of natural causes, what they will do is they will take the tusks away and put them in a safe. And that's because of the tremendous poaching problem, and obviously you don't want to encourage people to come in, and even if they're not necessarily poaching the elephants, to come in and take those tusks. It just fuels the market, and the trade is of course illegal. So they will take the tusks, but beyond that they will leave the elephant to the natural decomposition process that happens to all animals that die out here. So yes, it will be eaten. It sometimes takes a while for animals to be able to get into the skin or to discover the carcass. So what officials might do is they might open up the carcass to make things easier and to make the process faster, but beyond that, that is essentially how it will go, and they'll be fed on by hyenas, lions, anything like that will scavenge on an elephant carcass. Interestingly, that is one of the explanations behind the story of elephant graveyards. So I'm sure many of you have heard of the idea that elephants go to the same rivers, and they die there because of the search for soft food. What happens is when the rivers flood every couple of years, they collect all of those bones and then they get deposited in the same place. So when a river bends or something similar around a corner, those bones get deposited there as a group. It's almost like a sieve. And you'll see a lot more bones within drainage lines as well that have been washed into that area. And that's one of the explanations behind the rumor that elephants go into graveyards. We've lost our Ellies for now. I'm going to go back towards that pan so that I can show you there is water. In the meantime, James has got a kudu to show you.
And lonely in the thick Scotch mist that has descended. No, that's nonsense. There's just a bit of shade. But certainly quite lonely. It's Kudu cow. I'm not sure why she's alone here. I can't see any others. But she's being very confiding, and it's very lovely to spend a bit of time with one of the most beautiful antelopes here. I think the second most beautiful antelope, the most beautiful being their distant cousins, the Nyala. Oh, there's another one. Brian, I see it.
She's nibbling on a bone as well.
Oh, is she?
Mm.
Oh, that's right. Now, that is not uncommon, everybody, for kudu to nibble on bones every so often, or all the antelope for that matter. They do need to get hold of nutrients, especially when things are dry like this. Phosphorus and I think and calcium are the ones that are the most difficult to get hold of through browse. And so there will just be some sucking on old bones every so often. She looks to me like she's lactating. But where her calf would be or why it wouldn't be in attendance, I don't know. Maybe she's just about to give birth. Yeah, she looks quite fat, actually. She might be pregnant. Very beautiful. And I'll just give you a sense of the atmosphere around here. Gentle breeze blowing in from the southeast. Definitely much shaded from how it was yesterday. You can see there's no sun shining. Few birds calling. The ubiquitous woodland kingfisher, which calls in rain, shine, sleet, snow, blizzard, tornado, hurricane, and typhoon, totally undeterred by any form of extreme weather. But otherwise, things are pretty quiet. There's a long-billed cronbeck, which you might be able to hear just going. And that's about it. Right, we're going to keep driving. Let's see, we're on the southern boundary at the moment. We did get an update from Arathusa. There seems to be not a lot going on there at the moment, so I'm not going to go rushing off terra incognito to the west. We're just going to gently move around here into the area where Jamie had the tracks of the male leopard a little bit earlier, and maybe that will bear us some fruit. News on the wire, well, not so much the wire as the Bush Telegraph, of course, is that Shadow is in Hoffman's, which is this reserve just to the south of us here. A leopard called Tundi has murdered something to the south in Cheetah Plains. And that's basically the leopard update at the moment. Don't know where Mvula is, don't know where Karula is, and don't know where Tingana is. So those are all hopeful for the afternoon, and for now, of course. We may be lucky still. We've still got quite a long time of this morning drive to go, so we might be lucky. Certainly, as you've seen, there's plenty for them to eat on Djuma. African hawk eagle, everyone. Very nice, Brian. And you can see it hovering. I think it's an African hawk eagle. Almost hovering. Yeah. Struggling to fly south. Very thin tail for a hawk eagle, but it can't be a Wahlberg's. It's just the wrong colour. I love the way they hang in the air with the wind, and then after a certain time, when they just turn slightly and they move against the wind or parallel with the wind, the incredible speed at which they take off is just astonishing. Must be the most wonderful thing to do. And I imagine the first time you do it, pretty terrifying. I'm sure it must feel like they're losing control all the time. Michael, you're on Twitter and you want to know about how we identify the leopards. Is it from spot patterns? Is it from territories? Michael, it's from all. Yes, from spot patterns. It can be from ear notches. It can be from little scars here and there. But spot patterns are the most obvious. The spot pattern just above the whiskers is the one that's traditionally used. But you can use any kind. We know that Karula's got "wow" written across the front of her forehead. In spots, we know that some of the lines on the sort of spots down the back of Djuma and Quarantine are very distinctive. And as the old saying goes, a leopard don't change its spots. And that's absolutely true. So the spot pattern's the best way to identify leopards. The more you get to know them, though, the more you can look at them and go, oh, yes, well, that's who that is. Thank you, Michael. Just going to keep watching the road here to see if there are any tracks coming back onto Djuma. Djuma is to the right-hand side of your picture. African hawk eagle. Of course, I could be lying, which I wasn't. But you get an impression from the colour. We know the eagles in the area. We know that that's the African hawk eagle is the only one that's white and black like that underneath. And that's why it's just a question of experience and time. It's got nothing to do with any kind of amazingly rocket scientific knowledge of the bush. It's just experience and time. Let's head across to Jamie. She's got some wildebeest still at the water.
I promised I would show you the newly constructed pan. So here we are. David, you asked yesterday if I could show you this new pan that they have built. It will take some time to waterlog and then fill up, and it cannot be pumped every day due to the fact that actually underground water supplies are not infinite. But this is the pan that is under construction. It will, if they cannot fix the other pan, it will be pumped and there will be access to water. The soil is damp, so it's starting to seep through, and they do have access to water. They've been digging in the mud. This explains our wildebeest with the hat or the wig or whatever we want to call it. She's been thrashing her head through this grass. But you can see there is water or mud at least slowly starting to form. The animals do have water. The Galago pan also has water in it, so the animals do have access to water. And the wildebeest calves are going to be happy little creatures. So if you are watching the Djuma Dam camera, please don't stress too much. It is hard. The times are going to get hard, and they are going to be harder as the months progress. I know the clouds have come over the top of us. I have now lost all faith in the clouds. I feel like they bring false hope, because so far, whenever we've had days like this, it's been nice and cold, drops the temperature, but it doesn't seem to hold any rain. And as heavy as these clouds look, I think that they are bringing us false promises. I don't think that the rain is going to come through. Now, I've just heard exciting reports. It looks as though there's a possibility Tingana might have wandered his way in the southern corner of Djuma, so I'm going to follow up on leopard tracks there. In the meantime, I'm going to send you back over to James.
Right, we have come now to a site of a squirrel. And there's a squirrel on the ground there. There it is. I love watching them run. Run on a non-stop look. And they're the most picture book kind of nursery rhyme squirrels, these. Look the same, they seem to behave in the same way. And they're getting very excited, of course, because the marula season has started. And while many of the other animals will want to wait for the marula seeds or marula fruits to ripen before they eat them, the squirrels will just eat the flesh off them as they are, because they want to get the nuts, the very delicious nuts that come out of marula fruits. Right. They are starting to ripen quite nicely. We ate a few yesterday. Very delicious. So we're going to drive slowly through this area. Tingana could be around here. Karula could be around here. We're right on the kind of boundary of Shadow and Karula's territories. And if Tingana's around here, well, maybe he's seeking one of them out. Sammy in Texas, a lovely question, and I really enjoy this topic. You say, if a leopard cub was to get very weak, will its mother stay behind or eventually just leave it? Tammy or Sammy, I can't quite hear what it is. T or S? Sammy. Hello, Sammy. Sammy, the answer is, if it is going to cost the mother her life, she will absolutely leave the cub. If it's going to cost the mother too much physiologically, if it's becoming too much of a strain, she will leave the cub. And that is simply because if she doesn't, they will both die. And that doesn't make any biological sense whatsoever. It's the same reason that a leopard and a lion, in fact, most animals will not defend their youngsters to the death. They will run away before it gets to that point and leave their cubs or youngsters to their fate. And that's simply because it makes no evolutionary sense for them to die as well. Sorry, we're going to go across to Jamie. She's got some ground hornbills.
Oh! We have some seriously good luck today. We've just stumbled upon our 3 ground hornbills that we've been seeing fairly regularly. Try and get a nice view. The one's in the marula tree. I wonder if it's investigating nest possibilities. There's 2 on my left here, but I want to show you the one in the tree because we don't often get to see them sitting in trees. Let's try and get a view of him. Oh, it's so nice and cold. Hope he stays. Please stay. Try and sneak up on him. going mad? Oh, no, he flew away. Oh, he's worth a try. He was in that marula tree. And that is the sort of tree that I have found hornbill nests in before. Couldn't tell if it was a male or female, but we've seen this group of 3 a couple of times now. It's really nice that they look to be moving into this area. That would be wonderful to have a hornbill nest around Djuma. Let me get any closer. It's going to fly away. And in fact, it looks like it's about to wander off the road. I love their heads, the way that they sort of turn them so that they can observe their surroundings. So with those eyes situated on the side of their heads, they have a blind spot right in front of their beaks, which means they have to cock their heads to be able to see properly. That's that funny little movement that they do. Yeah, the other 2 went. They must have gone further ahead. Let's see if we can catch up with them. And hopefully, if these 3 move in here, we'll be able to spend a bit more time with them and slowly habituate them. They're quite nervous around cars. They don't tend to stick around to let us view them properly unless from quite a far distance. But if we get to spend plenty of time with them, they'll easily relax. It's alright, hornbill. They are in very thick monkey orange, and I think also because it's windy, they're very skittish. Even more skittish than the last time we saw the 3 of them. Not quite to the point of flying off, but they are running off. And that, I think, is our last and very brief view of those 3 ground hornbills. I don't think they're going to come back out onto the road. Definitely not going to go off-roading after them. They definitely are spending more time around quarantine and around Philemon's cut line. Maybe, just maybe, they're looking for a new nesting site somewhere around here. No. They've moved off into the block. I can't see them anymore. So I'm going to leave them and continue. And hopefully we get lucky and we bump into Tingana for the last half an hour of the sunrise safari. Nice open spot to turn around in. So Tingana came up from Hoffman's, which is, for those of you unfamiliar with the setup of this area, it's that little property the property in the corner that borders on the southwestern corner of Djuma. So yesterday we had him on Arathusa in the drainage line. We obviously wandered in from there sometime, probably last night or early this morning. Let's go see if we can find his tracks and figure out exactly where he went to. Whoa, you can hear the wind howling. I might actually cave in to the pressure of the cold and pop James's jacket on. I don't have my jacket, but it seems as though James has left his. Thinking about it. But at the same time, I feel as though I'm wasting an opportunity to be chilly. This wind is really cold though. Alright, thanks James for your jacket. I'm going to put it on. Oh, it's very dusty. Claiming James's clothes. Hope he's not too chilly. Oh, what a nice jacket. It's very cozy. Cool. Thank you, Mr. Henry, for leaving your jacket in the car. The reason we get so excited about those big birds that I was trying to show you for new viewers is that the ground hornbills are one of the most endangered species out here. There's only roughly 1,400 of them left in the world. So we always get very excited to see them. They're always a special sight. We're very, very lucky to have them moving into this area. Now, I'm going to send you back across to the owner of this jacket and see if he is feeling the chill a little bit.
Right, everybody, we were just here with some dwarf mongoose that have now disappeared because they got a fright from us. But we can see that this little mound that they live in is active. That, of course, is because they have left their latrine on the roof. Obviously, that's very unhuman. We don't leave our latrines on the roof, thankfully, but they have left their latrines on the roof of this termite mound in which they live. And it's a perfect little burrow, lots of little entrances, and I'm sure they have a good time in there. And, of course, being dwarf mongoose, they will, they won't mind this weather because it's nice and cool, but they'll stay close to their den. They don't like to be out in inclement weather too much, so they'll lurk about, eat a few scorpions, perhaps the odd millipede, and then they'll go back inside if it gets a bit windy and unpleasant out here. Hello, ex-Ranger. You want to know what plans I have for my leave? Well, I think, first of all, my first 3 days are not actually leave. They are I'm going to play the guitar at a sort of corporate event. Actually back around the Sabi Sands, which will be quite fun. And then I'm going down to the Eastern Cape, where my parents are. And there I shall recline, sleep late, swim in the river, possibly have a gin and tonic or two, and I'll probably play some more guitar. I will attempt to play golf, by which I mean I will lose a lot more balls in some thick Eastern Cape bush, possibly say some words that shouldn't be repeated on live internet, hopefully not break any clubs, and generally relax myself. I'll hopefully also do a bit of writing while I'm down in the Eastern Cape. So that's the general plan. These plans seldom work out the way you think they're going to, so we'll see what happens. Thank you, ex-Ranger, for taking an interest. Teresa, at the risk of boring people who may have heard the story before, I'm going to give you the truncated version of how I came to be a guide. It is an interesting story in so much as it was the last thing in the world I was going to be. There were two things that I was recommended or told that I shouldn't ever be. Well, not told, I just didn't think I would ever be. One was a writer and the other was a nature guide. And I am sort of both now. And I came to be in the bush because I had a girlfriend who was particularly strong-willed in the manner and methods of a honey badger. And she decided that we were going to the bush when I was a young man of about 23 years old. And so we went to Natal to do a training course with a group called CC Africa, now called And Beyond. And instead of being sort of having a miserable time, I discovered a whole this incredible world in which I now work, and that was in the year 2000, so that was some time back. And she moved on to other things, and I remained, and I've been in and about the bush ever since. And that's how I came into the bush. There is a lilac-breasted roller. So Teresa, that's how I became a guide, and then I didn't guide full-time for a long time. I did mainly, I did guide for a while, and then I did training of guides, and I did a bit of land management, which was great fun. And mainly, Teresa, it was all because I wanted to live in a beautiful part of the world. And whatever I had to do to remain there, that's what I did. That's called a crowned lapwing. And there's another one. I wonder if there aren't alarm calling it something. There's certainly, there's the roller also going. We'll just stop here briefly and see if we can't see a leopard spying us from a bush. And their Afrikaans word, like so many of the words out here, or bird names, is onomatopoeic, kivit. It's because of their call. They say kivit, kivit. See, kivit, kivit. Ah. Julia, you say that I identified the other day a bird as a white-backed puffback, and you couldn't find it anywhere. I will try and find it for you in this book. If I can't find it in this book, I've gone stark raving mad. I just need to find the shrikes. There they are. It used to be called a puffback shrike, and if I'm not mistaken, it's now called a white-back puffback. And if I've got that wrong, I shall be deeply embarrassed, Julia, and I shall apologize profusely and possibly flagellate myself. Oh, it's called a black-backed puffback. There it is there. It's called a black-backed puffback. So, Julia, I hope that makes sense. The name itself makes no sense at all, but a lot of the ornithologists like to be cryptic. They think they're being very clever by naming birds by the least obvious features. So there's the puffy back that it's got, and it does that when it's just playing. It's got a lovely call. It goes... and it sticks that fluffy piece of white out of the back, and I think I called it a white-back puffback mainly because it is most obviously white. And it's a bit like the brown-headed parrot, whose most obvious feature is its bright green back, the black-collared barbet, whose most obvious feature is its bright red head. So, yes, I'm sorry about that. I apologize profusely, Julia, and I shall attempt to do better. And the worst part of the story, of course, is that Kirsten, in the final control, who will not let me forget this, guessed that it might have been a black-backed puffback. I feel awful. I feel dreadful. My ego has taken a horrible hammering. There we go. A little starling, a glossy starling, which I shall attempt to identify 100% correctly in case Kirsten disagrees with me. Now, we get a number of those glossy starlings, but two of them have got a yellow eye, one of which is the greater blue-eared glossy starling, and the other is the Cape glossy starling. And if they don't call, and if they're in bad light, like this, it's almost impossible to tell. That one looks to have a sort of deep blue ear covert behind its eye, and so I would say that's the greater blue-eared glossy starling. But I mean, on the camera at that level of zoom, you're not going to be able to tell the difference. Not even Kirsten will be able to tell the difference from there. I must say, I'm most embarrassed. I'm sorry about that, Julia. James in Texas, an interesting question about perhaps local beliefs rather than sightings. You say, what strange sightings are reported by local people here that we might not necessarily believe, but that we hear about? Not many, actually. I think the general kind of knowledge of the available wildlife here is relatively good out here. There is one story, however, that I've heard, and I think I've told this, may have told this before, but there's a story I've heard from all the way up here, all the way down to the Eastern Cape. I've heard it in Zululand, and that is the story of, I forget the local name, but basically it's the name of a water mongoose. And the water mongoose apparently is renowned for this extraordinary ability it has of inverting its bottom. And what it does is it goes into the chicken coop at night, and it turns its bottom towards the chickens, and then what it does is it inverts its anus totally out so that it looks like a fresh tomato. And the fresh tomato then, of course, attracts the attention of the chickens, and as the chicken comes to peck at I'm not making this up. As the chicken comes to peck at the ripe tomato, as the chicken comes to peck at the ripe tomato, the tomato, which of course is the inverted anus of the water mongoose, re-inverts itself, and the mongoose sucks the chicken's head into its bottom and then makes good its escape with the chicken hanging out of its bottom, and it disappears off into the bush and he eats the chicken. And oh dear, I've managed to tell that story without totally declining before. Anyway, the picture, the thought of the mongoose rushing through the bush with a chicken hanging out of its bottom is a little bit too much for me to cope with at the moment. Now, I have genuinely heard that story from totally unrelated sources in totally different parts of the country. Obviously not firsthand. Somebody's uncle has always seen this. Nobody has ever, you never meet anybody who's ever seen it, but their uncle has seen it, so has their aunt and their grandmother. And that, James, is the most outlandish story I've ever heard. I've not heard it recently, probably for the last 5 or 6 years or so, but that is the tale of the water or grey. It may be a grey mongoose, I'm not sure. Either one of them has the remarkable talent of inverting their anus and making it look like a ripe tomato. Managed to compose myself. The other story, of course, is the story of the togolosh, but that's more like a kind of minute, what do they call the Bigfoot or Yeti? Urban legend, yes. Rural legend. Sasquatch, that's the one I'm looking for. But he's only about 1 meter high, and he's also 1 meter wide, depending on which particular proportion of him you're looking at. Right, this is a roundabout where Jamie said she had the Tingana tracks a little bit earlier, so we'll search the termite mounds here and see if he isn't lurking about trying to catch a warthog or an aardvark. He likes to catch those termite mounds. He doesn't use the method employed by the water or grey mongoose. He uses the traditional method of his teeth and his claws rather than his bottom. I'm sure you can imagine my mirth at the thought of a grey mongoose trotting off into the night, a hapless chicken caught in the grips of what it thought was a ripe tomato, but was in fact not. Nice question from Siberia, who's obviously very aware of the birds that are going on around here. You want to know if we get Passer domesticus, or the house sparrow, around here. Not in the bush. We do find them in the village, in the staff village. You will find house sparrows. I haven't seen them so much at Djuma. Certainly up at Ngala and at Londolozi we used to get them, in Johannesburg all over the place. And then another introduced European species, the European starling, we don't find up here actually. You find them not even in Joburg. I think I may have seen one or two in Joburg, but in the Cape, absolutely. Lots and lots in Cape Town. Yeah, they don't seem to have made it all the way up here. Look at these two little birds sitting, feeling quite sorry for themselves. Gorgeous pied or magpie shrikes. Used to be the long-tailed shrike. May be wrong. Kirsten, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what they were. In fact, I'm 100% sure. I'm just feeling, dejected. Isn't that pretty? No one knows why they have the long tail. It's a hindrance in flight. Both male and female have it, so it's quite unlike the tail streamer on say, a bird of paradise or a wider or a widow bird. And you can hear them calling to the other side. Just listening to the radio quickly.
Morning, thanks, Yuri. Andrew is making his way, that's why to follow up.
Let's carry on. I just thought I had an update there. There's a great deal of yakking on the radio. Morning, Yuri. Can you go again with your update?
I was just pointing out the button on our way to Andrew let me know.
Okay, copy, thanks. No, I thought he said Tingana, but he used the Shangaan word for lion, Ngala. Now I got deeply excited. We don't have any lions, by the way. They are on Buffelshoek. Alyssa, you want to know if there are any golf courses, or not golf courses, are there any water hazards around the place, public areas that might be affected by crocodiles? Yes, there are. Not where I'm going to play golf in the Eastern Cape, but certainly where I used to play up in Palabora. You find hippo and crocs in some of the water hazards, and that was right on the borders of the Kruger Park, so sometimes you'd have a leopard walking across a fairway, often a giraffe. I nearly sliced a 4-iron into a giraffe's head once. It was standing nowhere near where I was supposed to be trying to hit the ball, and unfortunately the poor giraffe had to duck quite swiftly as I sliced out of the rough and narrowly missing its head. But yes, we do have a couple of golf courses like that. Then there's another one in the south of the Kruger Park, a very salubrious place called Leopard Creek, where you don't go and play golf, A, if you play like me, and B, if you're not sort of almost as rich as the good Lord himself. But it's a stunning place, right, called Leopard Creek, right on the, I think it's the Crocodile River, on the southern end of the Kruger, and you'll definitely have to watch yourself there. Wonderful way to experience the game of golf, surrounded by magnificent wildlife. Right, we're going to head up towards the Buffelshoek boundary again and just have a look at Sydney's dam, see if there isn't anything going on there. So I think this, I'm just struggling to hear a bit here. I think it's from Mafuta in California. Mafuta, I hope you know what your name means. I'm not sure why you've given it to yourself. Anyway, you say that you've been to Arathusa and you are pleased that I've shared with the viewers that the traversing area that Arathusa and the Djuma use is much larger than the one that Wild Earth uses. And you say you saw some incredible game. Yeah, absolutely. And it's important to note, certainly, so the guests at Djuma at the moment are sitting in a lion sighting on Buffelshoek. There have been wonderful lions there for the last sort of 3 or 4, well, probably about 10 days. And that's because of the water concentration. And so the animals' movements become so predictable. And the lions seem to, Talamati pride with 2 Salati males, seem to eat a buffalo every 3 days. They lie by the same water hole, wait for a desperate buffalo to come down, and then they eat it. It's very convenient. We were chatting quite a lot about how the drought may well, in some ways, help some of the animals. And yeah, the carnivores seem to be benefiting already. And Mafuta then on Arathusa, of course, you traverse into Simbambili and down into Shirley's, I think, maybe. And then all those properties that we mentioned quite a lot, like in Koro and Cheetah Plains and Chitra and those places, and Hoffman's, they're used by Arathusa. So yeah, you're looking probably at about 9,000 hectares of land for both of those properties. And Djuma, we do have mentioned the fact that we haven't seen lions on Djuma for the last 6 weeks. That's not unusual for any area. So there will come a time when there will be no lions on Buffelshoek. There will be a change in territories and a change in water. There'll be a change in grazing and movements, and suddenly you'll find the lions here again, and they'll be doing exactly the same as they are there. So when I say that we haven't seen lions on Djuma for 6 weeks, it doesn't mean that this is some kind of suboptimal habitat. It's purely a function of the fact that this is not, at the moment, because of the machinations of the Birmingham boys and their territorial disputes, it's just a bit of a vacuum at the moment. And sorry, we did last see a lion on the 23rd of December. That was on the eastern boundary. Oh, look. Beautiful right-crowned shrike there. Isn't he lovely? And Jose, you're in Virginia and you want to know what the hottest temperature I've ever experienced out here is. I think yesterday must have been pretty close, I think it was about 45 degrees Celsius, maybe up to 46 or 47. So it was very, very hot here indeed. I think that was probably about the hottest I've been. Beautiful white-crowned shrike, and everything is sitting here in great relief that we don't have the same kind of heat today. Right, everybody, that's it from me today. Thank you very much for being with us and for chatting to us. Thank you, Brian, for your efforts. And especially, I do apologize for the technical glitches we had this morning. I think, really, it did have to do with the heat yesterday. It threw everything out. Anyway, we should be back to normal. The thumb would like to greet you now in a great purple radiance. It looks like Bishop Tutu.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Very nice.
Yes. Not quite as cool, but almost. Right, we're going to hand you back to Jamie now. Thanks to Kirsty and Jerry in the final control. We'll see you this afternoon at 4 o'clock. Bye-bye.
And as always, ladies and gentlemen, it's been wonderful to have spent the morning in the pleasure of your company. Sibu, just quickly, I'm going to try and answer your question as quickly as possible before the end of drive. So Sibu, the black mamba from Hammanskraal, wanted to know a bit about hornbill breeding. And you've heard that they are assisted by other hornbills. Yes, they are. They're cooperative breeders, and it's usually, almost all the time, it is their offspring from a previous clutch of eggs. So their offspring will stay and help their parents breed. I don't necessarily know that that's a way of, that if they don't do that, they won't be able to breed themselves, but certainly it's a good way for them to practice, so they probably have a much higher success rate than those that don't assist their parents. But yes, they are cooperative breeders, so they have a very, very interesting system in the way that they work. They are fascinating birds, and I think we're going to learn far more about them as time goes on and they're studied more and more regularly. We're really only starting to get to grips now with the way that the social system works and the way that they disperse off into groups, actually in ways that are sometimes quite similar to wild dogs. There's an interesting parallel between the two species in certain respects. Most importantly, of course, that they are incredibly endangered. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I will be following up on Ghana this afternoon for the sunset safari. But I must say a big thank you to Tebs for all of his fantastic camera work and for spotting our wig-wearing wildebeest, which is a new one for me. Absolutely loved that particular moment. Thank you as well to Jerry and Kirsty and FC, as well as the wonderful Eugene and the eloquent, as always, Mr. Henry and Brian out in the other vehicle. Thank you for your questions. Have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Cheers for now.